Become the champion in your market with BASF Advanced Process Solutions. Do you want to reduce cycle time, increase touch time, increase on-time delivery, reduce parts ordering errors and redundancies, reduce work hours without reducing sales? With APS, you can reduce stress, tension, and the daily chaos while improving productivity, profitability, and overall performance. It's time to discover Advanced Process Solutions from BASF. Start building your future today. Talk to your representative to learn more about the APS program.
Hey guys, welcome to Repair University Live for the April edition. Very excited to have everyone join us today, and I want to send a special thank you out to BASF Refinish for making this broadcast available free to the industry at large. We do so appreciate it. We've got such an important topic to cover today. We're going to be talking about OEM repair procedures, and then specifically we're going to drill into General Motors so we can get the most benefit out of the day for everyone. So we've got a lot to cover. In fact, I think just like every show, we say we basically have an 8-hour show that we're going to try to cram into an hour. So guys, let's get started. You know, repair procedures. We kind of like to, we always kind of bring this back to Lego. Jason, it was an analogy I've heard you say a couple of times. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Well, the analogy I like to use with the Lego set is, you know, we've been playing with Legos all our lives, right? And we still, the first thing you do is you got to look at the instructions or you're never going to put the car together. But yet we, every day we hear people talking about, well, I've been repairing cars for 20 years, 30 years. And way too often we don't look up the repair procedures. But so why would we do with a Lego set, but not with a vehicle where we're protecting our customers and making sure that we're putting their vehicles back on the road properly? And it's just it's the importance of OEM repair information, and there's more information available than ever. And it's imperative that we're following that information, make sure we're repairing those vehicles properly.
Right. I think this one, that manual is kind of scary for this one.
That's a pretty thick manual. There's 2,700 parts on this thing. I know that the kit goes for like $400. They got a few of these things part of their technique thing. And I searched the internet after you had said that, and I found this thing. And I mean, everything moves. The wheels move. They spin. You know, the engine can spin around. The doors open and close. The seats can move. So it's a really intricate thing that Lego went through. And I'll be honest with you, you couldn't put this together without the instructions.
No
right.
But you know, cars, everyone thinks they can just put them together or do whatever they can do, or one procedure fits every vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely cannot touch a car today without having the OEM repair procedures. So each and every time on each and every car, no matter if it's the 10th Camry I've done this week, I'm going to be going into those OEM repair procedures. And well, for me, everybody always asks, you know, whether it's the website or Facebook or wherever, Kristen, when you go to look for your OEM information, where are you starting? And well, Jason, I always start with your site, the RTS portal. So I wanted to kind of start here today and let you explain it a little bit to people and walk us through.
Well, we appreciate you suggesting that to people. And you know, the RTS Repairability Technical Support portal is an avenue that we've got together now to share OEM information, produce daily collision repair news articles. We've got, you know, thousands and thousands of pages, you know, 50,000 pages of content on the RTS portal. We're getting, you know, more and more viewers each and every month going to the RTS portal and starting at that location. We've done a lot of research. We've got a team back in Appleton, Wisconsin that are spending countless hours researching this information and making it available to the inter-industry so that we can save the shop's time, we can save the insurance adjuster's time in finding that information. Our partial part replacement matrix, for example, we get questions every day, is there a sectioning procedure for this vehicle? So rather than investing your time in researching the information, logging into the OEM website and hunting for that information, we've taken a lot of that work, a lot of that guesswork out for the industry, and we've done the research and let you know, hey, you know what, if you go into this particular vehicle manufacturer, you will find the sectioning information that you're looking for. So just, you know, a wealth of information. Our newest ones are OEM glass replacement matrix and sharing information on what the different vehicle makers recommend for adhesives and prep and pinch weld preparation, making sure that we're not creating that weak bond by putting paint on there if it's not recommended. And just a wealth of information, and we got some exciting information we're going to share at the end of today's show about RTS. and some things that we're working on today.
So if you are a platinum individual
Yep.
or a gold class shop,
Yes.
you already have access to this.
Exactly.
It's been there for you for about a year now, right?
Yeah, we launched it June 30th, 2014, actually. So we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary almost on it. And again, we've been growing it rapidly. But yeah, any technician that works for a gold class facility, any industry professional that's a platinum individual, or if you've taken 4 classes within the last year as well, you can log into rts.icar.com and click on the My iCar login or bring it to the login page, and you've got access to all the information. And then the collision repair news articles that we do daily now, those are available to everybody. So when we produce a new article, like we got our sectioning Subaru article here that we're seeing on here, that's open to everybody in the industry, and it always will be. But some of the more time-intensive pieces where we've got behind the login information.
Yeah. Now I start every day with this website because it's not CNN or it's anything else for me. I go straight to the iCar website. I'm looking for those articles for whatever Appleton is sending out to me. That helps me with what we do here, but it also helps us what we do with customers and shops and insurance companies that we work with out of the country. So I would definitely recommend that you guys start every day on the RTS portal. It should become part of your ritual with your morning coffee to get in there and see what's new. But what I do enjoy, Jason, is it's everything I need in one place. So it's going to let me not only find the matrices that you guys put out, but it's going to let me find the OEM information I need for repair. So let's walk through that. So from the portal, so that's rts.icar.com.
Yep. rts.icar.com, or you can get there from the icar.com website by clicking on the technical knowledge information on icar.com, or you can go to ask.icar.com. And all kind of we put a few different URLs and redirects in there to make sure the easiest part. But the OEM information is one of the key areas that we've got on the portal. We've got all the vehicle makers there and varying levels of information. Honda, Ford, for example, have asked us to push out a lot of information. We've got a ton of information there. Same thing with GM. Now, some of the more niche vehicles, we don't have as much information, but every one of them has step-by-step information, how to find information. And so we're going to be talking about General Motors today, so it looks like we're going to look at some Chevrolet vehicles today.
Yeah. So once I'm in here and I click into the OEM information, I'm going to see all my grill emblems.
That's right.
Which is what I love about it. It speaks my language. For any information I want, today we're going to focus on General Motors. So one of the best things to do for us to get the most information out is try to not talk in general, but let's drill into one. And we wanted to pick an OEM that every shop is going to see a car.
Sure.
I can't imagine a collision center in North America that doesn't see a GM product throughout the year. Well, Larry, you may not see any GM products up there in Mid-Island.
We do see them. We see them at Mid-Island. We see them at Exclusive Auto Collision. So we do get them in there, yes.
All right, so I'm gonna drill in a little bit. And Jason, when I drill into General Motors and I am in the portal, what all information is available to the industry at large?
Yeah, so again, we've got links out to the GM free website. We've got links out to the GM PACE website. Articles that we put together, so Chevrolet iCar News, so every time we write an article on a General Motors vehicle, it can be accessed from our collision news area or right from here. Our latest feature, which we're going to take a little bit deeper look at later on, is our calibration requirements. So we've got a lot of these advanced driver assist systems.
Right. So let's say, I'm going to say I got a question right now coming in from Christopher. And he's asking, what's the best place to find replacement instructions on interstructural parts? And that would probably be what you were talking about earlier, like if I knew that OEM, I could come into my partial replace and find out if there was a section.
The partial parts going to include front rails, rear rails, and side apertures, not so much on the interstructural parts. That you're typically going to have to dive a little bit deeper into the OEM website itself. Okay.
And then when we talk about the calibration requirements that we're going to get into, you guys have broken it up by OEM. So if I have someone walk in my shop today and tell me that General Motors doesn't require calibration pre-scanned or post-scan, would you guys be able to help me with that?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have links to those vehicles and list the different options that are on there, as we're going to see on a vehicle a little bit later, and tell you exactly which of those conditions would necessitate a calibration or aiming procedure.
That's awesome. So I don't have to go diving or digging or calling friends and go, who has a procedure they can send me?
Again, it's a great place to start. We're not going to have the actual calibration procedure there, but we'll have the information that'll tell you when it's necessary, so that if you meet one of those conditions, then you can log into that OEM website and find that calibration procedure.
Now, one of the things I always struggled with, and I always have to use Larry. Larry's my phone a friend. When it got to the European OEM sites, navigating them was really overwhelming for me because I wasn't doing it every day. I wasn't the tech, that was back there in it. And I I would always end up generally calling Larry going, I can't find it, help me out. But you guys have gone a step further in this. So for people like me that maybe we're not doing this every day, navigating an OEM site, you've given them some extra information there.
Yeah, so no two OEM websites are alike, unfortunately, and the different vehicle makers put different information in different locations. So what we've done is a couple different things. First of all, we've got on the right-hand side here, you see, we actually got a video that'll walk the viewer step by step into, once you have a subscription, how to find the information that you're looking for, some tools and some tips. And then what we've done also, we've actually got the step-by-step steps listed there as well, and it's printable, so you can print it out, put it into a binder. If the website changes, we update the video, we update the step-by-step instructions. So again, we've done a lot of that work, and again, we've even taken some Ask iCar calls where we've jumped on a go-to meeting and walk the technician right through the procedures to find that information. So the Ask iCar team back in Appleton does a fantastic job of keeping people.
We could probably send a couple of our phone calls to them, Larry. We
there you go.
free up some more time.
What happens is when you have an OEM that doesn't have a certified collision repair program that you go for the training and stuff like that. I know iCar does the Nissan GTR and the Land Rover Jaguar program, but Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Porsche, every time you go for a training class on one of the cars, they make you go through the website. And they make you find procedures, and you explain it to the group of 10 people, broken up to 2 each. So me and Jason, we partnered up, and we would explain it to you and somebody else, and you would explain a different part of the car. That gives you training on that. So if you're not familiarized with it, these videos like this can really help out a lot for you to try and navigate and find this stuff, because some of the stuff is buried in there, and it's not in place that sometimes makes logical sense, because the Americans are a little bit easier, but the Germans and the Asians, because of the language barrier and the exact translation doesn't always work out to technical terms for technicians. So this does help out a lot.
Yeah, and in this case, what's really interesting about General Motors is they've got 2 sites.
Yes.
So they've done a great job of making a lot of information available free to the industry at large. No matter who you are, even consumer, you can get to some information. And then there's a secondary site with a lot more detail in the pay site. And you've got the processes for both.
Yep.
So everyone's going to know how to navigate them. But let's start with the free site. So if nothing else today, a shop or an insurer, an independent, someone's going to know that there are some free resources available, no barrier to them at all. We can't say, oh, it's too expensive, or I can't afford this or that. No barrier at all. So this is genuinegmparts.com.
Yep.
Larry, walk us through it real quick.
With the GM site, most of these free sites will work on a phone. You can set that up, and you can work on a phone. You can save your password. Some of them will ask you to make up a password for free, and you can get in there. This one's totally free. You don't have to sign in. You just go to the website or right from the iCar link, and you would click on collision, obviously, because the collision is what we want. And then it brings up a different page, and it has a bunch of quick links here that brings you down to the bottom of the page. So you have collision repair manuals, technical documents, programs, and promos. That's more for parts guys. Position statements, and then you got the Cadillac repair network for the aluminum network. But if we go to the next screen, like we click on collision repair manuals, here's a link for the free manuals, and it gives you, make and model, the year, and they'll go over that, and then that'll bring up a PDF of the system. Now, personally, I think that the free websites or even third-party repair information is good for estimators, damage assessors, adjusters. That's good for you to write something as far as what the repairs are going to be. The technicians really need to go to the PACE site because there's much more in-depth information. We'll get into that afterwards. If we clicked on another one of the links, we're going to bring to technical documents. GM breaks up their technical documents across a couple of different areas. So we got technical warnings and cautions. That's your safety precautions on a lot of this. They can all be downloaded PDFs. The next screen would be our technical information, which gives us a wide range of some repair procedures, some warnings, and also some of the position statements in a different area. So if we actually click on...
I think, did we hit a spot there on clipping, Larry?
Well, yeah, if you want to do sectioning, it's a sectioning, warning, and clipping. But if you click on that area there, it actually brings up, and GM just has a very standard statement from 2013. Warning: sectioning should be performed only in recommended areas. Failure to do so may compromise the structural integrity of the vehicle and cause personal injury if the vehicle is in a collision. So once again, it's just basically they're saying don't do what you want. We have procedures. If we don't, it's full part replacement.
And something else in this, Larry, too, something that you mentioned numerous times I've seen you on social media and, and on this show as well, gets back to the, what does ICAR say? Again, ICAR says follow vehicle maker instructions, follow vehicle maker procedures. Those old general sectioning guidelines that were developed in the 80s are not applicable on today's vehicles. That was dealing with mild steel vehicles that weren't designed to go through the IHS 25% offset crash test. So those general sectioning guidelines aren't applicable for today's vehicles. They shouldn't be used on today's vehicles. Again, the only time you should be sectioning these vehicles is when the vehicle maker's got a procedure. And fortunately, a lot of vehicle makers do have section procedures. General Motors is fantastic for having front and rear sectioning information and then side aperture and giving you some different areas that you can do it in as well based on the damage. And a lot of vehicle makers are doing that with a lot of their outer panels, which is fantastic for
Honda did that,
Yep.
GM, Ford did it. So you're getting a few different manufacturers that are coming up now with more options on the outer panels. Because yes, most of them are mild steel, but they're attached to high-strength steel, ultra-high-strength steel, so you can't change the parameters of where this thing's meant to be sectioned or even how it's affixed to the car. There's guys who still bond stuff on because they just feel like it. No, you got to follow what the manufacturer wants you to do.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can get any clearer on that. So the official position is ICAR says follow the OEM recommendation. So if someone procedures. Follow the OEM procedures. So I don't know if I had to make a billboard or a T-shirt or whatever we got to do to make that.
Some T-shirts.
I can hand them out with a Repair You guy on them and ICAR says on the back of them. That would be fantastic to do.
ICAR says follow OEM.
So just right here, clicking through the free information that's available to you today, no registration, no pay, no money available. You've been able to access the body repair manuals, which are going to give you a lot of general repair procedures. They're going to help you, one, write better estimates, but two, make better decisions for your customers. We found the position statements. So if you ever got, does GM have a position on blank? Well, now we know where to go find them, to look them up, pull them off, print them for customers, print them for shops, print them.
Repair order.
Yeah, collect it to whatever you need to do, but whatever you wanted to do to document your repair appropriately or be compensated appropriately for that repair, we've been able to find that information. So already a worthwhile show, guys, and we're not even halfway through the material. So let's take out, what else have I got in this free site for me, Larry?
Well, we have our technical information as we spoke about. Then you got your tech procedures where they'll talk about the different types of steels or materials, substrates that they're using on the vehicle, steel, aluminum, plastics. Mostly this is the steel stuff, the steel information, frame procedures, stuff like that. The next one will be your service bulletins, which is what some people would call your position statements. You got to remember, not every company is going to have a position statement for things. Position statements are usually made because something was left out of the manual or something needed to be addressed later on because of a repair procedure, a repair protocol, or an issue that has occurred because of something. Yes, some companies are coming out with position statements on pre-scanning and post-scanning, which we'll talk a little bit later about. Other companies it's been in our repair manuals for the last 15, 20 years. You have to read. That's the unfortunate thing. And for any damage assessor or insurance adjuster that says, well, I need this or I got to see this. Well, guess what? Go look it up. That's part of your job. Your due diligence is to do your job properly. Now, if it's something that you have to pay for, that's a completely different aspect that maybe you have to pay for it now or your company has to pay for it.
Right, and part of that looking it up is going to be in multiple places. It's not always right where we want it all the time. So it's kind of like the old library days where it may have took 2 or 3 books to get what we were going to need for our book report. But now there's more in that site. So we covered collision, we clicked over there, we clicked through, but from the Genuine GM Parts site, there's a couple of other things that we wanted to call out and make people aware of.
Well, if you look at the programs and promotions, that's also on the collision section there. There's a link for it. It'll bring you to the next page, which will be Repair Insight magazine. You got to scroll down on that, and you'll catch it in the middle there. And if you click on that particular area, this will take you to another site inside the same area for GM parts. Now, you got to remember the parts and promotions are basically for your parts manager. There's promotions for buying parts, even with the GM credit card, you can build points with it and stuff, and there's discounts. But if you look here where it says technical articles, and you scroll down this page a little bit, they have articles that come out monthly, sometimes bi-monthly. And I mean, for example, here's an ICAR article. I think Steve Marks wrote that one, if I remember correctly, about performing your welds properly. Here's GM, one of the engineers wrote about fixing the doors on full-size trucks and SUVs, how to section them in or put the whole panel on. Recommended box pickup procedures. So besides having your OEM repair procedures, you basically have what you would say, well, kind of like a mini iCar class written out for you in a 2-page, 3-page article that gives you little tips and tricks. So GM's really trying to help out a lot.
Yeah. Right.
Explain this stuff to the guys, or even explain the repair procedures to the technicians that are out there, and even the estimators.
Yeah, there's a lot that's there. Yep. You know, what I always recommend to the shops and insurers, and I'll go back to my insurance days and I'll put my insurance hat on. I used to take a lot of these articles, because a lot of this stuff's been available for a long time. We just kind of didn't even know it was there. I would take a lot of these articles, I would print them out, I would put them out for my adjusters. We might have our monthly claims meeting or our quarterly claims meeting. I would send them out, just constantly trying to keep people up to date with what's going on. And you can do the same thing in the shop. You can either email those articles out to your estimators or print them out and drop them on the break room counter back there, so that people know that they're constantly staying aware of the changes. And I think we all like to be aware, so that little bit of a boost is great for every employee to have. But let's get to one of the things that I think, Larry, we get asked all the time, every day. It's on, whether it's social media or private message. Hey, does GM have a position statement on blank? And here we go.
Some cases they will, some cases in the repair information. And GM, even though on that one page, some of their position statements are in those procedures or technical documents, they took all those and repeated them down at the bottom for position statements. And they have refinishing wheels, airbags, knockoff parts or imitation parts, junkyard parts, their position on everything here, requirements after a collision, non-approval of clipping. You know, people still think you can clip from the 1980s. You know, just gonna cut the car and put it here. I know what I'm doing. I'm a good welder.
It's gonna be better than factory when I'm done.
Yeah, better than factory. I can do it better. Post scans and even the scan tools that GM requires. These are the two newer ones. We're going to talk about those afterwards. But these are links to open up PDFs so you can save them to your computer and be able to have access. Insurance personnel would have access to these too, because it's free. So there's no excuse for them to say, well, you got to prove it to me. Well, you should know this information already. Do your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to assess damage, either being in a shop or an insurance company. Know your job. Plain and simple. That's my attitude with it. You better be doing your job 100%. You're not Derek Jeter that you get cheered on for doing good 33% of the time and make the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. It's the way it is.
Yeah, if we could have that. If I could have that level of error, I guess, it's like 70% level of error and still get a paycheck in this business, it'd be fantastic.
Exactly.
But no, it's true. No matter what your role is, it's your job to know the content of what you're doing that day. So make sure you have it available and have the resources for it. So guys, that's a lot of information available in a free site. So why would I even want to do the Pay General Motors site? What's there for me that I didn't just find all I needed in the free site there?
The problem comes in is that there's no hyperlinks. So anything that's a hyperlink on how to do something is not going to work in the free site. It's a PDF only, a static PDF. It's not a live or an active type link that you can click on and hyperlink to a different section and go back and forth. There's no wiring harness diagrams if you have to search something out or look for something. I mean, they're nice in color, and sometimes some of them are in black and white, and they'll give you a little key code off to the side that tells you what BW means, black wire with a white stripe through it, or BG, which is a black wire with a green stripe. BL would be for blue. More in-depth restraints information, actually how to remove the airbags, the torquing procedures, the resetting of the airbags, or even deployment of non-deployed airbags that have been determined not to be reusable. Other information on diagnosing this type of damage. And then, of course, all the mechanical information on how to change mechanical components. You have a vehicle that's hit in the front, and the water pump gets damaged on a 1500 series Suburban or Yukon or the pickup truck. And how do I change the water pump? What do I need for that? It's not going to usually be in a third-party provider unless you buy the mechanical. It's not on the free site, so how do I change it? What do I got to take apart? What do I have to do? How do I refill the antifreeze? Because most of these cars nowadays have to be pressure bled and pressure feed in with some sort of outside tool because of the way the systems are set up. Otherwise, they never work right. So that's why you have to go to the pay site. It's really very, very important. Good to write estimates with the free stuff. But to actually work on cars, you really need the technicians to be able to get that information.
All right, and let's take a look at real quick at what that pay site looks like. I know we talked earlier, Jason, you guys got a video that's going to tell me how to get through this when I get there. But this is the pay site for General Motors.
It is, and the other thing that we've noted here as well, the difference between the free and the pay site as well is, we've got a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt. That information is only on the pay site, so not even the structure identification and the procedures aren't currently found on the free site. It's only on the pay site right now.
And even some of the repair information on the structures of the cars, if it's a new body model year, so if it's a complete changeover, it may not be on the free site yet, but it will be on the pay site. And that's the important thing to remember. So if you have a model change, let's say the Impala just came out and it's a new body design, new platform, it will not be in this free site, it'll be in the pay site, which most of these pay sites are per day, per week, per month, and even per year. They'll usually have.
And GM's a perfect example of that. You can buy the daily, the monthly, or the yearly subscription.
And it's not bad. It's $24, $25 for the day. So if you have 3-4 GMs to work on, you can look at 3 or 4 different cars. It's for 24 hours. You can download the information, you can save it, whatever the case may be, but it's not bad to do it. And you want to attach it to each vehicle, you can do that. If you're working on a lot of, let's say you work at a GM dealer, you're going to have it for free, obviously. If you work on a lot of GM cars because of your logistic area, your demographics, then I would pay for that for the year. And if I only work on some Fords once in a while, I would pay per Ford to look at that. But once again, you got to pick out what kind of cars you have in your shop.
Right, what works for you. Now, Jason, I get a lot of questions all the time. Larry alluded to it earlier. Hey, Kristen, what service should I have when it comes to getting OEM repair information? It's like everyone wants this third-party, simple solution, one-stop shopping kind of thing. How often is it that there's information on the OEM site, whether it be an update or a new model, that's not even on some of these third-party sites?
Yeah, I mean, we run into it quite often. Procedures that we may have shared on RTS that have been updated, and the vehicle manufacturer lets us know right away. We can update our information, but yeah, I mean, they're changing things. They might add a reinforcement to an area, again, for that 25% offset test, or if there's a new calibration procedure for a vehicle that's got advanced driver assist systems that it didn't have last year. Again, the pay site, the GM site, for example, it's going to be the best place to go for that, to make sure you've got the most up-to-date, pertinent information for the vehicles you're repairing.
All right, and then so let's dive in a little bit on, we've covered how we're going to find that information. So that's one of the hardest things. There's a lot of people there that you just don't know what you don't know. I'm going to keep stealing Mark and Farzam staying there for every class. You don't know what you don't know, but when you find it, it's almost like a whole other problem. It's like, I have all this information now, what do I do with it? How do I read it? How do I put it into play? And let's start by just going over a few of the tools that people are going to find when they get into these sites that can help them through the repair process.
Yeah, the material identification that General Motors offers, and a lot of other vehicles as well. Vehicle makers are now doing a fantastic job of identifying, where they're using mild steel, where they're using, high strength steel, ultra high strength steel. And then, so here we got an exploded view of a vehicle here, so we can look and see, the front wheelhouse front panels made of HSLA, front wheelhouse panel mild steel, front rails mild steel with some HSLA in there. So it kind of gives us the makeup of the vehicle. And what that can really help us do is write again, that more complete and accurate damage assessment, so we know what we're dealing with. So if we're looking at a B-pillar reinforcement and it's identified as ultra high strength steel and it's got some damage, well, we can quickly know, what, we're not going to be able to straighten that because it is an ultra high strength steel reinforcement, or if it's got an aluminum strut tower, or mixed materials that are out there, we know exactly what we're dealing with. And then we can follow vehicle maker recommendations for what they allow and what they don't allow. From a straightening standpoint, General Motors has got a fantastic repairability matrix that they've got available that outlines what they allow you to do for different materials.
Yep, okay.
Just real quick, these are the hyperlink. This is right from the page, and this is another thing we wanted to show. You can click on these and it'll give you megapascal ratings and other information on the type of material, heating recommendations and stuff. But then you click on this and it gives you your a hyperlink in the site, the pay site, to those procedures. Now, for example, I think Chris asked earlier about it. Well, here's for GM, panel inner side, inner sectioning, inner panel replacement. So it will give you the inner hyperlinks. There's more to this when you go to those sections by listing, but these are quick links to get to different areas on the procedures when you're a technician and you're in there already. So until you get familiarized with it, they do give you some extra hyperlinks. A lot of times it's like, well, I got to replace the B-pillar inner. I'm in the B-pillar inner. Well, first follow the procedure for removing the outer panels and adjacent panels. There's a hyperlink to send you to what you're supposed to be taking off. And that's what really helps out a lot. That's why I wanted to show the hyperlinks.
Right, and like you said, like Jason said, that estimating process becomes very, very critical, that I am able to identify the substrates, what those materials are on those panels, and no repair or no repair. So, we'll take that from the insurance perspective. I spent a lot of years running around in a car. Actually, I had the van, my little estimator van with my desk and everything in the back of it. And you're riding 15, 20 cars a day in a lot of metropolitan areas. Well, knowing my substrate guides, knowing my materials, what was repairable and wasn't repairable, allowed me to make sure that I didn't send a car to the shop thinking I was going to repair a piece that, even a small dent now makes that thing non-repairable. We're cutting it out, we're putting a new one in. Save the shop some hassle, save my customer some hassles from getting cars there, only to have, Larry, you write a supplement and call me and go, Kristen, that's a total. What were you thinking? And that just makes the whole process, that whole cycle time, the whole experience just better for everyone with the less friction that we have. So just this up front made a huge difference, I know, in my teams throughout the years for our accuracy. So let's get into that matrix, because this is part 2 of it. And this is from the free site.
That's the free site. They will give you the same type of thing we just saw, but everything's black. Even though it's underlined, it's in black because there's no hyperlinks that are real for it. So you're only going to get limited information on it.
Right. So now we're going to that steel matrix. So now that I've identified my structures, I've got my tensile streaks and some of the brands, I can come back in here and Jason, you also have this on the ICAR website as well.
Yes, it is. Yep.
It's on the RTS portal, but it's telling me everything I can and cannot do, cold repair or no repair, or heat, and if heat, what my heat range and time limitations are.
Yeah, so if you look at, for example, HSLA, they allow cold straightening, they allow some heat for repair. When we start getting into dual phase 799 and less, they allow cold straightening, but not heat. Again, we don't want to use any heat on those ultra high strength steels. And then once we get to above 800 megapascals, no straightening at all. And again, that's going to vary from vehicle maker to vehicle maker. ICAR, we held a repairability summit, a couple of repairability summits a while back. And so if there's no information from the vehicle manufacturer as far as what you can and can't do, we've now developed an inter-industry developed and vetted best practice that we've now is available in our structural straightening class that says, anything above 600 MPa shouldn't be straightened. But again, if we're looking at the case of a GM vehicle, they've got repairability for that, up to 799 MPa for that. And they're using some of those ultra high strength steels, some of those higher strength steels, even in front rails on, like on the ATS, I believe that's 700 plus MPa steel in there. They do allow some straightening, but again, it's got to be done cold. And then you look at some other vehicle manufacturers, and again, that cutoff might be 600, maybe in some cases even less. Potentially from the tensile strength.
So just a quick question, when it says that I can do up to 1200 degrees, 90 seconds times 2, does that mean I can heat that panel to 1200 degrees 10 times? As long as I don't go over 90 seconds?
No, it's 90 seconds to 1200, and then it would have to naturally cool down. You can't quench it because you'll crystallize it and cause micro cracking and tempering. And then you let it naturally cool, and then you're allowed to do it one more time after that. And that's it, forever.
So I can't just keep heating that panel over and over?
No. And you should always try cold, and that's why you see now a lot of the structural repair benches that are out there have additional anchoring. So it's no longer just clamp the car at the four corners. I mean, Chrysler had a big thing about, a few of their cars, the Jeeps and stuff like that, that you just can't grab it by the pinch welds. You rip the car off the frame machine. You have to anchor in different locations, and you might need additional anchoring to either hold a piece in place or a component in place, or to assist in the direction of where the force is going to be applied to pull something out.
Right. So there's a lot has changed. There's a lot I was doing when I left the shop in the 90s that we're just not doing anymore.
No. Different cars today.
My skills are gone.
There's no more horses in front of the cars anymore, hon.
Well,
that's what happened. They
removed
removed them.
I'm going to take you to a shop down the road here in a minute. We may have some things to show you.
We're not putting horseshoes on.
Yeah. All right, guys, so let's talk about procedures, because it's one thing to get them, and I think we have a lot of great people in this industry, but a lot of times the OEMs haven't helped me a lot when I print these out and I get these in my hand. So these are what our traditional repair procedures have looked like from General Motors. And I believe, is this the Cruze?
This is a Chevy Cruze.
Okay.
This is the older model, up to 15?
2011 to 2015.
Yeah,
okay.
2011 to 2015. And what you have to realize is that some of the engineers that write this material, or in some cases they might have somebody that's just writing it off of engineer notes, and sometimes it's a custom cut and paste issue. They don't repair cars, so they're taking the assumptions, the engineers, that we're a lot more educated in some cases than what they even know about, or an assumption. It's not on this particular vehicle here, but like a lot of times GM will have a cut up in this area, in the sail panel or in the B pillar, and they're going to tell you to do a 25 millimeter overlap. And I've seen questions on Facebook, why would you overlap it? It's going to leave a lump. Well, they assume that they want you to take the metal and offset it, so now you basically have a built-in butt joint with backing. So it actually has a backing piece. GM's one of the few companies that still has procedures for backing. Most companies don't want backing pieces, funny enough. So it's important to read this stuff, and when you do print it out, you can take notes on it. You can figure out what you need to have. Some of it's not updated, like, obviously most companies want you to squeeze type resistant spot weld instead of mag plug welds. A lot of the repair material in here is still written on plug welds.
Right.
And that's where some guys can be misled. So it's important to ask that. And I've seen that Ask iCar question. Well, Nissan shows only, mag plug welds. Can I resistance weld? And then you're able to answer it. And sometimes that material information is buried because that's an addition they have to add to an apex area.
Yeah. So real quick while we're in here, this is the 11 to the 15, right? For the Cruise. The Cruise is approximately $20,000 and under car.
Without all the options. I think fully optioned. I went on yesterday just to check it after we found out the base price around $15,000. I got it up to $26,000.
Okay.
And that was about it. That's the max that you're really going to get away with on that vehicle. So it's an economy car. It's a first time buyer's car. If you're buying something new, a kid just out of college, or somebody who's on a fixed budget.
Right. So in this case, we have General Motors is going to allow plug welding to replace this quarter panel on this car.
Or resistance welding.
Yeah. Guys, is there a reason why when it gives me specific drill sizes for is there a reason there?
There might be. That's probably what they want, right?
Yeah.
It's the heat effect zone. I mean, if you look at the iCar welding exams or practice welds or the qualification tests to become a certified, they have a certain parameters for plug welds. So an 8 millimeter plug weld should have a 10 millimeter plug weld when it's completed, and minimum, and hold that area. You don't want to have a 12, 13 millimeter plug weld on 0.9 of 1.1 millimeter thick material. It's just too much, and you're really causing a heat effect area there that would actually strengthen that area but also make it weaker. So this is why they have parameters on how big the drill. Also, they know their spot welds and they know how big the bit should be, so you're not making bigger bits, and you should also prevent from drilling through, so you can weld the panels back on properly if you want to use resistance welding.
And I think one thing that is worth noting as well, when we're talking about drilling the 8 millimeter plug welds, to make those plug welds back on this vehicle, again, it's important to visually inspect and make some test welds, destructively test welds as well. So take the old quarter panel off, make some welds on it. Don't just jump right in there and
without a doubt.
Put the machine where you think it should be. Make some practice.
Just dragging it over and adjusting as I go.
Yeah. No, you don't want to do that. And if you are going to take the time and effort to do that, and charge for it on the estimate and stuff like that, whatever you do, please do me a favor. Take pictures of it. Hold pictures of it. Put it in with the picture file and say, I did attempt to do it the right way.
Yeah.
I did do this. You never know when something's going to come back and become a problem, because you don't know what becomes a problem until it does, and then it's too late to prevent anything. You can't go back in time and go, well, I did make practice welds. Well, where are they? I didn't take pictures.
Yeah. No.
Sorry. Now you're lost on this one.
Yeah. So it's important that when you pull those repair procedures and you're thinking about what you are or aren't going to do to the car, whether you are the technician or you are the estimator, that you are aware of the rules and the requirements of that procedure, what you can and can't do to that car. Having a minimum or a maximum on my plug welds may limit me from using maybe a used component. It's hard to drill out a used quarter and then come back and put it on a car and stay within those parameters. So those are questions and things that you would want to talk through. So when I taught policy school years and years ago, and we would take the auto policy out, and an adjuster would ask me a question: is this covered or not? I would tell them the policy is like the Prego pasta sauce. Trust me, it's in there. And I always say the same thing about OEM repair procedures. Every question you have, trust me, it's in there. We just got to go find it. But General Motors has recently made a lot of investments, the commitment to the technician, the commitment to the repairer, to make this a little easier. I'll be honest, I struggled with the old diagrams. Where am I cutting? What am I doing? How many welds? How many am I drilling out? How many am I putting back in? Those were always questions I have. But boy, GM has stepped it up, haven't they?
They have.
So this is the new Cruze.
Yep.
So the
Yes.
16 and 17 Chevrolet Cruze, still in the same price point, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, around about the same price. Yeah.
Oh, boys. Can we talk about this car a little bit? So this is a $20-something thousand car. This is probably the car that I'm going to buy the kid to go off to college in, their first vehicle, my 16-year-old, et cetera. And now to put one quarter panel on a car, Jason, what's it take?
We got, looks like we got some spot welds. We've got some waterproof waterproof rivets. We think those are blind rivets that are used on the lower part of the rocker panel area. We've got a 370 millimeter braze seam down at the rocker panel area. We got 31 spot welds, another braze seam up in the sail panel, and some more slot brazes and some more slot brazes. So no conventional mag welding, no conventional spot welding even on this, or a couple spot welding I should say, but no conventional, the old plug welds. So we're not plug welding this quarter panel on now. We're using these materials, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but I think there's also might be some adhesive on there that we looked at as well.
Yes, there's some adhesive over the wheelhouse. Like many manufacturers have been doing for years, they're putting adhesives around the wheelhouse area. And I'll be honest with you, for those who don't know, this is very similar to a Mercedes-Benz repair procedure.
Yeah.
Mercedes-Benz will have resistance welds back here because the arms can reach. More than likely, and we haven't gotten an answer on this yet, but they made these slot welds back here because of the type of material this rear body panel / quarter extension panels made out of. Additionally, the arms probably can't reach around there, so that's why they're doing that. Mercedes-Benz for years has had on their steel cars steel to steel rivets where the arms can't reach because you can't do single-sided resistance welds regardless of what your salesman tells you. And they had rivets down here and you put seam sealer over the top. Well, here's a $20,000 car, and I priced this out between the MIG brazing welder and the rivet gun itself. It's more money than the car, basically. You know, this is not where I got told for years teaching I-car classes, because I've been involved in aluminum repair with German cars since the
dawn of time,
early 2000s. And they're like, oh, I'm never going to see that, I'm never going to see that. And then we got the F-150, and now everyone had a heart attack, and all the aluminum repair guys are going, okay, big deal. And everyone else is like up in arms over it. Well, now you have a $25 or under $1,000 car that is, this is almost very, very similar to a Mercedes-Benz repair procedure for one of their steel cars, an E-Class, a C-Class, even portions of the S-Class that still has steel and aluminum to it. So this is where now the technician has to realize there's a difference that's going on. And by the way, GM now is doing away with their butt joint with backing. It's an open butt joint because with silicone bronze, as opposed to what's posted on Facebook, it's always an open butt joint. You need to get that capillary action behind it. No, it does not make it stronger at all.
Makes it weaker.
It makes, well, it will make a silicone bronze weld weaker. Basically, the reason that manufacturers had backing plates years ago was because your welding sucked, and they wanted to try and give you a little more of a heat sink. But then they found that there was more issues with corrosion getting in there. So it's not because it makes it stronger, it's because you guys suck at welding. That's why they did it. And
my welding is not that, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's
so
pretty
that's
bad.
why
I mean, it's
they
not that
had
bad.
those. And on a frame rail, it might be a little bit of a different story. But on outer panels, that's why they have it this way. They need that capillary action. And you notice in the sail panel and the rocker, where you cut with a saw, they're having that. And Jason says he's going to try and find out why they have these slot welds back there versus plug welds or anything like that. And they might say, you know what, we didn't want to use plug welds to cause with mag welding, so we want to use silicone bronze, but silicone bronze plug welds aren't as strong, so we made slots. And I also want to find out what the slot welding procedure is. Are we welding one side, are we filling it in, or is it like the Honda procedure where you go up and down? That'd be interesting to know.
So here's what's really interesting. From one model to the next, so let's say today I had a 15 Cruze in my shop. How I would repair the quarter panel on that Cruze is drastically different on how I'm going to fix the 16 cruise that now rolls into my lot. So for one quarter panel, I love it when I hear someone say it's just a quarter panel, Kristen. It's just a mild steel panel. But for one panel, I've got 4 attachment methods.
Yeah.
If you have been repairing 15 and earlier model Chevy Cruisers or Chevrolets and following that normal procedure of mag welding, resistance welding, stuff like that, and now you get this car in there, one, the shop isn't equipped for it. 2, you're not capable of even knowing how to do half the stuff that's required on this particular
That's
vehicle.
a great point, Larry. I may not be
because you haven't been trained for it yet. It's like manufacturers have joining method classes. iCar has a couple of online training classes and stuff, and
we've now got an in-shop MIG brazing course as
brazing
well. So we'll
course.
come there, work with the technician, make sure their equipment's set up properly.
Will you even come work with me?
Absolutely.
Because he gave up on the MIG brazing class. He just walked away from me. He said it was bad.
It was just easier for me to make it for her and just give it to her and say, here, say it's yours.
It was good. Now, from an estimating standpoint, so we go, hey, this is great for the technician, and it may be bad news for the shop owner to think about all the equipment I've got to own now just to do a $20-something thousand car for a quarter panel. But from an estimating standpoint, having 4 attachment methods means I've got some estimating work to do. I've got 2 welders that I'll need to have setup time and test time for the technician. I've got some rivets that I'm going to want to make sure that I'm putting on the estimate and accommodating, and then I've got some adhesive that I'm going to need to make sure is on that estimate being accommodated. So having that information right now can help me job cost up front and make sure that I'm not coming back on the back end with something that, we hate to send something over.
Make sure your technician is prepared for it to come in so they know exactly what they're going to be working on, and they've got all the right adhesive, they've got the right rivets, and they're ready to start making those MIG brazes.
I enjoy going into shops nowadays and watching them prepare for quarter panels. I had the opportunity to go to Kai Young's shop out in California and watching them prepare to put a quarter panel on a Tesla. I know it was a Tesla, but it was almost like an operating room. There was a table laid over to the side. Everything had been pre-fitted. There were 3 people. They had a choreographed dance.
And the inside of the quarter is already painted.
Yeah, everything was
And it's funny, you see a black line around the outside because most of the shops who paint the inside of the quarters will put the tape line on the factory E-coat, protects that, they paint it. Now you got this black lining around all the flanges, and that's where they're going to sand or do whatever they have to do, and the inside of the quarter is painted the way it's supposed to match the other side of the quarter. So it's pretty interesting to see what some of these shops do as far as a clean room. And I even see them do it on steel cars. It's not sloppy shops anymore. Actually,
I think the point to drive home is the day of one technician doing something start to finish is a little bit coming to where you're going to have to work in teams. It's going to take a couple people.
Because of the glue and the affixing of the panel, it can be a little difficult at times to try and get that whole panel on in the right way, especially sometimes the way some things are fitted together. So it does become an issue.
Yeah. I got a question coming in real quick. We'll take it. From Chad, do you think that GM is going to restrict parts on the cold bolts or maybe the new bolt or any of those cars due to brazing or any of the rivets? Do we see GM go into that?
I wouldn't imagine. So I mean, it's a pretty popular car. It's a mass-produced vehicle. I would not envision them going. I can't speak for GM, but if I had a guess, I'd say they're probably not going to be restricting.
I think they're going to look for, like many manufacturers, I think you're only going to look at the aluminum like they restrict the parts on the Cadillac. I don't know what they're planning with, there's talk here and there, and I might have some inside information. I'm not going to mention anything, but, the Suburban 1500 series is supposed to come out sometime soon, aluminum. So I don't know what they're actually going to look to do with that. It might be similar to Ford with the frame being steel and the rest of the body being aluminum. I don't know if they will or not.
GM's always been done a fantastic job too of requiring different training for their STS requirements. So I could see them more than likely moving from a restriction of the parts. They're going to hey, iCar's got this MIG brazing course, attend this course, and get qualified in that to do the MIG brazing.
We have to raise the bar on keeping accountability to people, though.
I think that's where that's going to lie. It's not really up to, unfortunately, I think us a lot of times we want the OEMs to help us drive quality by doing that. But at the end of the day, we've got to step out our game. And that falls on everyone in the industry, whether you're an insurer, a repairer, or a vendor, to make sure that you're doing business with the people that are trained and that you're making sure that the car is where it needs to be. So, guys, that was a quick, dive into the quarter panel on the Cruise, but there's a lot more information that shops need now more than ever before for even something as simple as, hey, I'm going to disconnect the battery.
That's done quite often.
So let's go through that real quick on what we have from General Motors around battery disconnect.
For most of the cars, anytime you're going to weld on the car, you have to disconnect the battery. And disconnecting the battery or working on the vehicle itself, you're going to set codes regardless. You can't push a car around It's not feasible in most cases. It's not safe in a lot of cases, and you're going to set things off. It's like years ago when we used to work on a car and we had the ABS disconnected and we reconnected it back again. You get the ABS light, you'd have to drive it and turn the car on and off, and it would reset itself just because it lost its traction. Nowadays, you have to prevent electrical shorts. So they actually have procedures for disconnecting the battery. And the first thing they say here on battery disconnect, record all the radio presets. And the third to last procedure on this is, the last procedure is program all the radio presets, radio clock to the current time. So that should reset your electronics or customer presets and stuff like that. So they're actually telling you have to do this. You have to put all that information back in there. Some companies actually say find out the radio lock code, because some radios lock when you disconnect the battery and reconnect it. But there is a procedure. You can see a lot. This was a different type battery hookup. Obviously, it's probably something that's hooked up to the airbag system like BMW has for years, or the other German companies. So you're going to see more and more of these electronic things hooked up to battery systems that actually disable stuff to keep the occupants protected and prevent fires.
And let's talk about a question we get a lot of times. So in General Motors perspective, I have a lot of technicians tell me, no, Kristen, I don't have to worry about any of this because I got a surge protector on the battery. So what's the position with surge protectors? So I've even had some insurers tell shops they should be buying these surge protectors so that none of this stuff has to be done to the car anymore.
And if you listen to that, you're completely liable for the airbags being deployed.
What's the issue with those, boys?
It holds enough charge to keep the battery, to deploy the battery. You can deploy an airbag with 2 wires, not that you're supposed to do it this way, with 2 wires and a 9-volt battery and deploy an airbag. So you do not use them at all. That's why a lot of manufacturers want you to disconnect the airbag control module, because you'll be working on the front of a car with a satellite sensor and you see them hanging. Some shops even run over wire harnesses, but you see the airbag, and now the guy pulls onto the frame machine or into the booth with the wires hanging, and he didn't rip them out, but all the airbags deployed. What happened? Well, the car thought it was in an accident. You got the airbag, accelerometer bouncing around all over the place. The car thought it was in an accident. These are computerized systems. I mean, we drop our cell phone on the floor. The first thing we do is turn it back on and reset it. A car's, traveling a lot faster than a phone falls on the ground, and there's tons of computers in there. And you got to watch out for that.
I always tell every shop that I work with, the best advice is not to take repair advice from the tool truck guy. So that's just so if the OEM says disconnect the battery, please disconnect the battery. There's some there. Let's talk about this volatile memory programming that General Motors has. And this is our $20,000 car. Let's remember that.
When Jason and I were looking at the procedures yesterday, we were laughing because like this third one from the bottom there on the reconnect was volatile memory programming. So Jason threw a shot at me and goes, "What is it related to you with the volatile anger?"
Did you make the car mad, Larry?
Yes, it has anger issues. It needs therapy. But it's funny when you click on the link for it in the repair information that's paid for. You can see that it talks about electric window lifts, sliding sunroof. Which if you click on those hyperlinks, they tell you how to do this, and basically it's hold the switch and stuff like that. But interesting was this. Initialized steering angle sensor, vehicles without ESP and with electronic power steering for both of them. And it's in red, and it tells you some information here. And it tells you to ensure the proper initialization of the EPS system, do the following. And basically it says turn the engine on with the vehicle stationary, turn the wheel counterclockwise until it stops, turn the wheel clockwise until it stops. So basically it's a reset that you don't need a computer for. Sure. But if you don't read the instructions, guess what? It may not be set right. And the customer might drive the car off and go to make a left turn or a right turn or go around a curve and veer off because the system locks up or something happens and they hit somebody else.
Or the backup camera with the angle. So we're initializing the steering wheel position sensor essentially.
So that it works.
So it knows.
So just from putting a quarter panel on, wow, I got a lot of stuff I got to do to this car. And it's a 20. I keep wanting to drive. It's a 20. This is not a $100,000 Mercedes. This is a $20,000 car. But in this is a case where the OEM's given us everything we need. There's no hidden agenda. There's no oopsie, I didn't know. They've laid it all out for us so we can fix that car properly. Now, here's another thing that I hear often, and is that General Motors does not have a position on pre- and post-repair scanning. Is that true?
It looks like October 2016 they came out with a position statement on that. Again, if we're not doing a pre-scan of the vehicle, we don't know everything that we're going to run into on that vehicle. I liken it to three-dimensional measuring, in our damage analysis process. Let's measure the vehicle so we can write a thorough estimate on that vehicle and understand exactly what we're dealing with. Same thing here, by hooking up that scan tool and identifying which codes are there, and then going back and look, okay, is this one related to the collision or is it unrelated to the collision? If there's been, X number of miles driven or key cycles, there's a pretty good chance it's not collision related. But if it's hitting the left front and we've got a left front wheel speed sensor code, well, there's a pretty good chance that there probably is something. So we can, again, prepare for that. We're not doing it at the last minute before the vehicle's getting dropped,
or not doing
getting
it at
picked
all.
up, or not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of these aren't going to, they'll set a diagnostic trouble code, but they might not turn a light on the dash. And again, that's one of those.
Yeah, you're
those
not going to get a
misnomers
lot of
that's-
lights.
Yeah.
It's a misnomer too.
So General Motors is pretty clear here. General Motors takes the position that all vehicles being assessed for collision damage. Larry, what's assessed? Is that maybe an estimate or looked at after?
An estimate. I'm looking at the car. It's been
Okay.
involved in a collision. It doesn't specify the significance or the severity of the type of collision.
So it doesn't matter if it's a low hit or a high hit.
If it's
all
got
vehicles being assessed
If
for.
it was involved in an accident where you scratched the bumper and it's got to be sanded and painted, you have to do it. Unless someone key scratched your car was sitting unoccupied and someone walked over and vandalized it by kicking the doors in and all the panels in, then you don't have to scan the car. For your own due diligence, you should scan it because you don't know what pre-existing stuff should be there, but it's definitely not going to be claim related. But it could be claim related if it's involved in a collision, the vehicle is moving. You got to remember, this position statement came out in October 2016. They've had procedures for scanning and post-scanning since, I think it was maybe 1998 or something.
Yeah,
Maybe even a little bit further back. I mean, and especially almost every manufacturer has had it since they came out with discriminatory airbags, which basically almost everyone had by 2004, 2005. They had some sort of discriminatory airbag system. So we need to do this. You have to look at this stuff.
It's just a good standard operating procedure for your shop as well, because how many customers come back? Say that light was never on before. Again, if we're scanning the vehicle when it comes in, even if it is that key scratch, we can now document, hey, we've got this code on here. It's not related to this key scratch.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can have that conversation up front rather than after the vehicle's been
At a
delivered.
later date. It's a great position statement. I think a lot of our OEMs have done a good job with that. But I mean, it even talks about if I've lost battery or if I've had to disconnect something during the course of this repair, once I put it back together, well, we need to make sure it's working properly before we put the customer in the car. Those customers learn to count on those convenience features that don't throw those lights, whether it's blind spot monitorings or those active mirrors or whatever, even anti-pinch windows rolling up and down. Let's make sure all that stuff's working before it rolls out of our shop.
This page here just basically talks about the type of tools they're looking for, and at the bottom of it, there is a hyperlink, and this hyperlink actually does work because it takes you to a website that you can get on with the GM diagnostic tools, the TIS2, and it gives you the two different options for the tools. It's got a brochure, it's got the downloadable MDI2 brochure, and look, they've had scanning and diagnostic scans or examinations or testing for years. Same thing with their repair procedures tell you about pre-measuring a car, but we don't have a document on that, and eventually there will be, and they'll say, oh, this must be new. When you go into the pay site for recalibrations, reinitializing, you can see that this under $20,000 car, basically, look at all the options it has. Jason found this yesterday when looking through it when we were doing some work to put this PowerPoint together, and you can see the amount of different cameras that it has. There's two doubles here, but it's got about 8 different options for cameras, sensing, or anything like that. And Jason picked on this front
view camera.
That's in the mirror assembly, and there's a hyperlink for control module references, and we click on that, and it takes us to another page with all this writing. And you have to read through it, and they're all hyperlinks, and Jason found this one down here on the front camera programming and setup, so we clicked on that. And it takes us to our front view camera module, and as opposed to some other companies that might require computerized changing for just R&Ing a part, Jason found some interesting things on this particular vehicle, and we were able to figure some things out.
Some vehicle makers are going to recommend anytime you take out that windshield, you're going to need to calibrate that camera. In this particular case, on our Cruise, we don't have to do it if only the glass is removed. But they do have parameters for if I remove and if I R&I that camera or if I replace that camera, then you've got to go through the calibration procedure and the aiming procedure on it. And again, they've got to kind of list it out there as far as what has to, all the different steps that take place to properly calibrate that camera and make sure that system's functioning properly. Make sure it's not pointed too high or too low, and it understands the distances of the vehicle in front of it. So that forward collision warning system or the adaptive cruise control or whatever those advanced safety systems are equipped with, that's available.
All right, so we got a question real quick. Being OEM certified, how can we get insurance companies to comply with higher labor rates without them saying dealerships accept the rates? That's it's a great question. It's not really one it's not really one we can answer.
And I believe I've answered that on Facebook numerous times what to do with it. If you want, catch me on Facebook or inbox message me. I think you know the answer I'm going to tell you already on it, but you can check me on that. That's not for this class. This is about procedures, not about labor rates.
Tomorrow, our tomorrow class here.
Tomorrow class will take care of that. Or read Erica Eversman's last article that just came out recently. Or Google her name.
So there's the great thing.
If you click on that, well, on the other side here, see if you click on this is nice about the hyperlinks. This is where it takes you to this page, so we're there.
So we're good to go. Now, that's the great thing about this. By digging into the OEM information, there probably would have been a lot of assumption had the car been outfitted with, radar or speed sensing, claims mitigation braking, or something that's driven off of that front camera. That by doing the windshield would have been it's got to go. Right. But by looking at the information, I realized, doesn't have to go.
Yep.
So we're good to go on that.
Yep.
Jason, let's
go back 1 second. I'm sorry. Just real quick, guys. Look, one of the procedures is maintain speeds between 35 and 56 miles per hour. Now, this particular calibration thing, if you had to do the calibration, you're going to require 2 techs, and you got to drive it. In New York, I'd have to do this thing at probably 3 o'clock in the morning. But
to maintain the speed, you are correct.
To maintain the speed, yeah. But you have these test drives that you have to do for relearning processes, not just for customer satisfaction, but to actually relearn some systems. You have to drive them.
Yep.
Right, and that's techs out of the shop, and that's time, and that's compensatable, and that's part of that estimating process to make sure that we're getting.
And make sure you have your insurance on your GarageMan's insurance policy that's covering your techs out there driving these cars, and your paperwork's written right that you're allowed to test drive or move vehicles from spot to spot.
That's a good point, Larry. Jason, I'm gonna, because we're running out of time. I told you we had 12 hours of content for an 1 hour show.
Yep.
That's a lot, and I'll go back to. I'll just put on my insurer hat. Oh my God, how am I going to know where I'm at every day, when I do or don't need to do something, when I need to go deeper for the estimate? I got 20 cars I got to look at today, Jason. What have you guys given me that's going to help me out with those field adjusters or my staff adjusters or any of those?
So this is a new tool that we released at SEMA last year. This is our OEM calibration requirement search. Currently we've got 2016 models covered, we're working on 2017s now, and we've got a survey out there right now to see what kind of enhancements we would like, and right now the leading contender is going back for 2014 and 2015 model vehicles, but we've got thousands of hours into this particular tool. So again, if you're writing that estimate and you identify that this vehicle is equipped with a blind spot warning system or a collision braking system or adaptive cruise control, this particular search function that we've got on here will let you know which options are available on the vehicles, where the different cameras or sensors are located, kind of a general proximity area on it. We'll let you know which, so if you look at for example, on this, we're at a Cadillac.
We did a 2016 Cadillac CT6. Yeah.
So we've got a 360-degree camera, we've got active park assist, adaptive cruise control, and a ton of other options and some standard equipment
That's
as
the
well.
same stuff on my $20,000 Cruise, right?
A lot of
it's optional, yes.
Yeah.
And again, where the cameras are located for the different systems. And then if we go to the next screen, what we've done here is we've listed those parameters that require calibration. So again, rather than taking your valuable time while you're writing an estimate, we've put the time and effort in to identify that. So for example, the camera and the deck lid, if the video processing control module is replaced, if the camera is replaced, if the mirrors are replaced or adjusted, or if the face is replaced, you have to calibrate that system.
But notice the camera, which is in the deck lid, if you take the deck lid on and off, you don't have to.
Might be okay, sure.
Now, it's one of the few cars that you don't have to. So what Jason and I figured out is your readings are from the mirrors and the sensors in the bumper, not next to the camera like some other companies, and this basically has the little arms that turn, or the guidance that's there, and if you are on a deck lid on a lot of cars, you do have to recalibrate this to the steering angle sensor. Only in this case if those things are removed. That's important to realize that.
We've got a step further as well, let you know whether or not a scan tool is required, or if there are special tools required as well. For example, different targets, aiming targets, whether it's aiming mats, so Ford's got their 360-degree aiming mats, whether you've got different height sensors and different different tools that are out there. So we don't have, again, I haven't identified what those tools are, but letting you know that, hey, there are some special tools that are required for the calibration. And then what we've also done is we've included whether or not it will set a DTC. So if you remove the system and you don't calibrate it, will it set a DTC, yes or no? Not all those, we weren't always able to identify all those, but for example, in our camera, the front bumper grill, if we don't do it, it will set a DTC, and again, we'll know that we did it improperly.
But neither one will set an MIL or a malfunction indicator lamp.
Right.
You're not going to get the so-called idiot light on the dashboard. It will not come on. In most cases, it won't. If you fill up the car with gas and you leave the car running and you open up the gas cap and you fill it while running,
Sure.
you might set a light. Anything else with the car, you probably won't set a check engine light. I'm telling you, that's the issue nowadays that we have. You don't know unless you scan the car and diagnostically.
Well, here's a great example. If I'm just doing a bumper cover, come on, Kristen, what could happen from just doing a bumper cover? Oh, I'm looking at a camera.
Sure. Doing it at a camera, and you probably have to send it for a wheel alignment, because that's usually how these things are, especially with the CT6 with the ride height difference and being the higher end model versus the Cruise, which may not need that wheel alignment to be done at the same time. So it's why it's important to find out from the manufacturers. Even sometimes the dealer guys don't know this.
Right. Yeah. If those little bars, when you get the backup camera on, if those little bars are moving as you're backing up, well, you got a whole.
Something has to be done.
Assume there is something with the suspension.
And with the Cadillac, you don't have to do a wheel alignment if you take the deck lid off to, let's say, replace a quarter. But you do have to do it because you took the bumper cover off.
Yeah. Putting it all together.
So you move the sensors.
That's like, so we're over time as always it seems when we get into this topic. But Jason, like I said, and I'm so glad you're here because this has become my go-to. It's my everyday. I start every morning with the RTS portal, coffee and RTS. Maybe that's my T-shirt. I need to start with. And it's free for our Platinum. It's free for our Gold Class shops. But for our people that aren't either one of those, there's a paid fee, correct?
We have a daily subscription option. We've also got a yearly subscription option. But because we're talking about it today, what we want to do is we want to let people take a test drive on it. So what we've done this week is we've opened up the portal to everybody. If we go to the next screen, we're going to see we've got a username and password available. So when you go to the website and log in, you can use, but the username is RTS free and the password is free RTS.
So that's going to be, how long will that be available free?
We'll leave that open through the weekend and probably put the login requirement back in on Monday. But right now, again, it's available to anybody that wants to go take a test drive of the RTS website. All 50,000 plus pages are available to anybody in the industry right now.
That's fantastic. I think it's kind of like a drug. The first time you're in there, you'll never leave again. But remember, if you are a Platinum individual or a Gold Class shop and you maybe haven't set up your My iCar login, go to the RTS. It's rts.icar.com. Go to that portal today. Set up your own login. But if you haven't done either, and you want to take that free tour from now until Sunday night, please use that code. Take a tour, see all that's available to you. Go buy a couple of cases of paper for your printer. Maybe go crazy a little bit there, but I promise you are always going to want to come back to there. Those daily articles, those updates, they're kind of scanning all the OEMs, and the OEMs are feeding them a single source, and that gives me a single source instead of me having to go to every OEM website every day to look for stuff. You're feeding that to me. So amazing. And, when we ended on talking about scanning and calibration and the tools required, that's going to be the topic of next month's show. So May 24th, come back and join us for the live show. We've had a lot of questions about that. Kristen, what's the difference between scanning and calibration? Can a shop do one or the other? Can they do both? And what's required? So we're going to dive deep into what's required for calibration, the tools, the targets, the time investment, the hours for some of these things, so that you can make informed decisions as a repairer of what you're going to keep in-house and what may need to go out back to the dealership. The dealerships, no matter what tools we have, the dealerships will always still probably be involved in this through the service department. So there's a lot to cover. We appreciate you joining us today. Again, thank you, BASF, for making this free and available to the industry at large. Such an important topic. Thanks to General Motors. They did take time to work with us before the broadcast to make sure all our information was accurate. We appreciate their commitment to the industry and the technicians that are working on their cars, and ultimately to the consumers that are driving them, ensuring that there's a safe repair. Appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you next month for Repair University Live.